Hi, my name is Justin Shareghi, and my senior project is a design-build monument to the creative process. Some of my overarching goals are to design and build an experience that represents the collective steps, stages, and states of mind of designers or creatives. I also want to incorporate my own creative process into the representation and create a place that inspires and facilitates users' own creative process. I want to use the site features and connections to also bring together the different schools of design and bring notice to an underutilized site that has enormous future potential. The site sits to the south of the Cal Poly Library and just to the north of the Dexter Building. My first step to designing was to analyze the site and get as much information as I could from it. The site first interested me due to its proximity to our studios, and soon I realized that it was underutilized and unmaintained. Lacking adequate topographic data, I sought out to try to get the feel for the contours in the site. This is a section of the site running lengthwise from east to west. The site is approximately 70 feet wide by 400 feet long. The west section shows the relationship of topography to circulation through the site. Due to the site's proximity to my studio, I spent a lot of time analyzing which spaces I felt were important. Circulation patterns and existing vegetation were duly noted in an effort to get a better understanding of the site's existing resources. Much more analysis was completed, such as existing contexts, building entrances and exits, and parking. Floor plans were added to better understand the relationship between the spaces within the building and the landscape below. I spent time thinking about the importance of views going into the site, out of the site, as well as from the windows in the library and Dexter Studios. It was obvious that sun patterns in the site could be used advantageously with my designs. Here, looking east towards the ridge bordering Cal Poly, we see the sun's path during the winter solstice. Views looking east are not particularly spectacular in the morning. However, during the summer solstice, those traveling east in the morning will be greeted by a beautiful sunrise over the ridge. A large portion of the year, the sun rises visible looking east through the site. Sunsets during the winter months are spectacular looking west towards the coast. The rays of light beam through trees and are nearly perfectly framed by the buildings on both sides. As the summer solstice approaches, the site is in shadow less of the day. The sun's azimuth has changed, and now the beautiful sunsets that were perfectly framed during the winter months have all but disappeared from view. Here is my analysis of views within buildings to the site. These connections are very important to my designs. Much of the site is hard to view from the west and east ends, yet the Dexter Building and much of the library enjoys near panoramic views of the site. I want to make connections to the incredible knowledge housed within the walls of the Cal Poly Library. So much of design breaks the borders of different disciplines, and I hope to illustrate this within my work. Again, views from within the library provided me with a very interesting perspective of the site from above. The already spectacular eucalyptus trees seemed even taller from the fourth story. You can really get a sense of how little the site is used from up here. It is simply a place people walk through with little notice of anything else. I'm going to begin talking about the concept behind my project and some of the designs I have come up with thus far. My goal is to design and build a project about design. I wish to analyze and understand the different processes and states of mind designers go through to produce their work. I have always been interested in how our minds create things, how we go from an abstract idea to physicality. The more I thought about what stages and steps were in my own design process, the more I felt an urge to represent them in some sort of narrative. This is the goal of my work, to express an understanding of creative process through built form, to inspire others to think about their own creative process, and to go from inception to implementation of my own abstract ideas. I spent much time researching the different quantifications of the design process. The more I looked, the more I began to synthesize the different stages, looking for not necessarily a universal system, but rather a commonality among creative thought. I interviewed many designers, artists, and architects to get an idea of their feelings of the process of design. My research led me to this idea of perception. It is the idea of seeing, feeling, taking in. It is the beginning of the design process where you're looking at things, you're watching, you're analyzing, you're pooling your ideas, you're bringing things in. The next is this idea of conception. This is the stage where you ideate, you imagine, you conceive, you bring together. It's a stage for discovery. It's also a stage for selecting and implementing things. This is a stage where you build things, you produce. The next is this idea of representation. This is when you're evaluated for your expression. You're communicating with others. You're inviting others to critique you. You're eliciting a response. This is the sum of your analysis, your ideation, your skill sets used to communicate an idea. After breaking up my ideas into 3 concepts, I used the site to dictate where each of these concepts would be implemented. The east side of the site gets the most visibility from the major circulation route adjacent to it. I felt this would be a good place for a perception area where people could sit and think about what is happening around them. Connections to the library and Dexter Studio above will help frame the focal point lying east of this site. This is where the ideas of conception will take place. It is at this fork in the road where we must make a decision. The natural compressed axes pointing to this spot make it an ideal location to illustrate what some will call an epiphany, or the sudden moment when you have a great idea. I plan to use the existing high-pressure sodium lamps to create a nighttime viewing experience to those walking through the site or laboring away in the studios above. I intend to outfit the existing high-pressure sodium lamps with fiber optic cables to connect them to the different lights around the buildings and to provide an interesting experience for users. My final concept is the idea of representation. I propose creating an outdoor pinup space for all design students. It will include a multifunctional wall-like structure to have outdoor critiques. This will also be framed by outdoor seating that gives users an opportunity to evaluate and critique other students or simply relax between classes. I also intend to create a welcoming connection to architecture just around the way. So with that, I will conclude my presentation on my senior project. I would like to note that I picked this project because I wanted it to be different from what I've done in the past. It is also important to understand that I will be building at least one of these designs. Everything I come up with has to be feasible for me to be successful and achieve my goal. I encourage you to tell me what you think, and whether or not you think these types of projects have validity in the real world. I want my project to make people think about and be engaged in the creative process. If I achieve this, I will have been successful.